Sorry about those technical issues. Just come down past the dam trying to locate on these lines. I believe you heard line on the dam cam. I didn't hear anything. I'm pretty close to the dam, but maybe it was all the vehicle engine was running. Just gonna scout around this area and see if we can pick up tracks. I'm sure they came down this way. Buffalo were in the Muati yesterday evening. Perhaps they were following up on them. Always nice to start the morning with a bit of a pursuit, a challenge. Well, I think we're gonna just carry on down here slowly, see what tracks you can pick up. So let's send you over to Tristan so you can say hello.
Indeed, it is that time of the morning for us to say hello to all of you. It's a slightly delayed morning in some respects, but a good morning. It seems like the sun's about to come up, which is a good thing because it was quite cloudy at the start of our drive this morning. But as Dave mentioned, my name's Tristan. On camera, I've got BK this afternoon. I mean, morning. We're not in the afternoon, BK. It feels like the afternoon already. I don't know why. But it's definitely not. It is the morning. Maybe afternoon for some of you watching, but for us here, it's most certainly the morning. Anyway, we're trying to figure out where the sounds for these lions were, or you know, on the kill, and because they definitely were eating something last night, and there was lots of fighting going on in amongst them, and so we're trying to find that. But I'm actually on the trail of a male leopard, is what I'm busy trying to find at the moment. I've got tracks for a male leopard going towards quarantine from this side, and they're nice and fresh tracks. They on top of everything, they're glassy smooth, so I'm hoping that I can catch up with this male leopard. It's turned into a very difficult area, but heading towards quarantine, so I want to go around. Now, Landeka, did you say you just heard a leopard saw on the dam cam? Lion roars, okay. Interesting. But I was going to say, if it was this leopard, I was going to be quite excited by that, but lions, just for the record, don't soar. They are roaring animals. How far was it? Does anybody know? Does it sound close or not? Alright. Lions, where did you go? So Emma is saying it's a leopard. Landeka is saying it's a lion. We've got sawing and roaring. I'm worried. I'm worried about what's going on in our final control this morning. Yeah, properly awkward, you two. You guys need to sort yourselves out in there. Anyway, I'm going to go on the fact that there's a leopard somewhere close by, and I'm going to try and find it. Whether it was that made the noise or lions, I'm not sure, but we'll wing it and we'll try and figure it out. I think Dave came this way this morning, so if they haven't popped out, hyenas. BK is spotting tracks and looking, so he saw some tracks going up the road, but they're for the hyenas. This road is just hyenas central because they come off the den and they go up towards quarantine. And the hyenas last night were very, very busy. They ate our vacuum cleaner that we clean our cars with. Also, did you guys notice how shiny Rusty is? It was cleanup day yesterday and we gave Rusty a proper cleaning. So Rusty's bonnet is shining once again and not covered with a layer of thick dust. And so we were using the vacuum cleaner, and the hyenas have torn the vacuum cleaner to pieces. There's bits of vacuum hose everywhere. The vacuum cleaner itself looks like Dave's pot that he found the other day, which is very, very, very naughty. Alright, I'm going to try and just go and check up towards quarantine. I'm hopefully going to be able to find this leopard. While we do this, let's send you to Andrew Ndingala for this first time this morning, and Nikki so he can say good morning.
Good morning to all the kids and all the other viewers that are tuning in at the moment. So I'm Nikki here at Ambient in Gala, and with me on the camera is Owen. So I'd like to tell you the plan for this morning. So you'll see it's quite misty. We've moved into quite a bit of an open area in front of us. So we are trying to look out for any signs of possibly wild dogs this morning. We haven't seen anything yet, but it's still early on, and I think with the mist they might be laying in for a little while longer. And then eventually from there we'll probably go past that one lioness that has the young cubs and see if she's coming, or if she's going to come out this morning. But these open areas very nice, especially for wild dogs and possibly cheetah. I haven't seen wild dogs here for the last, I think, 2 weeks now. So it's about time we try and find them. No. So we are going to apologize though. So if you do see Owen wiping the lens the whole time, it's just because there's quite a lot of moisture in the air, and so it fogs up the lens. So as we go on, you might just see a few cleans. Please don't worry too much about that. It's just so that he can make sure that we can see, or you can see, what we're seeing now at the moment. But also what's quite nice about a beautiful morning like this is sometimes early on you can hear the southern ground hornbills calling, and they have that sounds like a distant African drum. So there was a very interesting question that was asked. I didn't get the name. I think it Landek, if you can just repeat that name for me, please. But do we get quite often any encounters, or quite close encounters? So sometimes we do, but it's more when you accidentally surprise an animal. But luckily, whenever so I would say with the encounters we don't really get as many. There are sometimes, I mean, you'll drive and then there'll be like a really dense area, and as you get around it, suddenly there's an elephant right there. But normally what we try and do is then immediately just get a little bit of distance so we can have some space between us and that animal, so it doesn't feel too threatened. It feels a little bit more relaxed because we're moving away. But there's sometimes, I mean, it's really hard to give an exact answer on it, but there's sometimes a chance where you might get a close encounter. But touch wood, myself and Owen, we haven't had a close encounter yet. And also like to add on to that, I mean, with close encounters, sometimes if we do track lions on foot, you'll track them and often you'll see them in the distance. It's not really, I would say it's a close encounter because you're on foot, but it's not necessarily a dangerous encounter, because normally when they see you, they'll warn you and say, listen, maybe a growl, maybe the flick of the tail telling you, listen, I know you're here, I don't feel too comfortable if you move away. And if you move away and respect that, they'll carry on with their normal behavior, and then you can get a vehicle to try and get into where they are. But so that does sometimes happen. Samara, age 10, that's a very good question you ask. You know what? I would like to show you on a book. Like, how do I know it's a cat print or possibly a dog? So we have this little book that we give all our guests. It's called A Guide's Journal. Now, if I move to the back here, this is probably the page that we want to focus on. So if you look at something that has a potential dog track, so even if you have a dog at home, you'll notice that they have two lobes on this bigger pad right over here. So the back pad, so if you had to take my palm, so it would be this part right over here on your palm. And then the fingers here would be the digits that you see right over here. So a dog normally has two lobes at the back, and then at the front of each of the lobe, you can see the claws in the sand. But with a cat, let's use this lion paw right over here because it's slightly bigger. You'll notice there's three lobes. So 1, 2, 3. And then you also notice, like right over here, this side here. Sorry, I'm shaking quite a bit because it's cold. But this one right over here, there's no claws, because with cats they are ambush predators. So what they need to do is they need to tuck away their claws and only use them when it's necessary, because if they had to expose their claws and they were walking on especially a hard surface, their claws would be worn down. And so because of that, the chances are if they do grab hold of something, it might get away because the claws will be blunt. The only cat-like, or say the only cat with claws would be the cheetah. Now, the reason why the cheetah, so you can see 3 lobes at the back, but then the claws in the front here. The reason why the claws are exposed is because cheetah relies on speed, and it actually uses the claws as traction. So in order to dig into the sand and propel itself as it builds up to quite fast speeds in order to catch whatever it might be chasing. But that's the only exception if we look at some of the bigger cat species. But I think for now we're going to carry on, see if there's any signs of possibly the cheetah, wild dogs. But if not, we'll eventually go and go past that, see if we can possibly find that young female or the young male lion or the rest of the pride. I know Sean and Rowan's also working hard to try and see if we can get it. But in the meantime, while we do that, let's send you across to Tristan. Let's carry on. Never know what's going to present itself.
Prospects on the horizon for our team up at Ngala. Hopefully they're going to be able to find all of the things that they're talking about this morning. I'm sure they will be working hard to do so. We are still looking around for this leopard, well, track at least, that hopefully comes out from where I last saw them. They basically were walking straight to where I am now from the other road, so they should theoretically hit this road if they were to come out. He could be still in the drainage line behind me here somewhere. There was 2 kudu that were on quarantine that were looking very, very, very shy. They were kind of ears up and just listening the whole time, and any sort of noise they were just whipping around to look at. So I wonder if maybe they heard whatever our girls in Final Control heard, who's still at loggerheads as to whether it was a lion or a leopard between the 2 of them. But we haven't found anything coming out, or certainly nothing that I can see yet. So I'm hoping that maybe he's still somewhere close by. I turned off for a while just to listen to see if maybe it was the leopard sawing or if it was a lion's roar. But Nick, I'm not sure if either one of you is right. What do you get? I don't know, because for the other one I'm going to just give you the nod or the head shake of shame. Here's Dave's giraffe that he was with just now. I suspect this is Dave's giraffe that is sitting here. But one of you is going to get the head shake of shame. The other one can get the high five of happiness. How about that? There we go. The high five of happiness and the head shake of shame. Those will be the rewards for whoever is right or wrong. Seems reasonable. Fair enough. We actually had a movie night last night where we watched a movie, and it was very nice to sit and watch movies with everybody. And we'll give the high five of happiness, because it was not a bad movie. Apparently, according to Movie Critic Londeka, it was a 7 out of 10, a pass for this particular movie. So we did okay. Now, often at this time of the day, as the sun rises, this is the perfect time for various animals to be roaring, sawing, vocalizing, whatever you want to call it. And so sometimes it's good just to sit still like this with the giraffe or impalas or whatever it may be, and just try and listen out and figure out what is going on around you. Like I say, we have fresh tracks for a leopard. We know there was sound for lions feeding. So there's got to be something around here. We just got to kind of decode it and just pick up exactly where they've gone. The problem is this male leopard track could easily be for Mulawati, which is not going to be easy to find him. He won't be that cooperative. If it's for the likes of Hukamuri or Tingana, then obviously very, very different. They look like they come from the south, though, from straight up Zoe's and then this way. So they could have come out of Hofmann's, could have come out of Arethusa. It's difficult to know because I didn't backtrack them, obviously. But there's no sound. I haven't heard anything. We've been sitting off for quite a while, so I'm going to have to rely on all of you that watch the dam cam on a separate feed to see if you guys pick up any more audios or audio vocalizations or anything like that. That'll help us. There's an elephant making a noise. The Ellies were also busy last night around camp. They made a lot of noise. Very quiet. Alright, I'm going to just keep trolling around this area, try and see if I can find where this leopard came out, or if it has come out. And while I do that, I'm going to send you back up to Ngala. They've got a stripy animal to start off the day.
So we just found, as we were moving through these open areas, we just found there's a herd of zebra here. And you see there's a few that actually have their heads down in the grass at the moment. And they're probably just feeding, you can imagine. You can imagine early part of the morning, now it's time for breakfast, so they're probably going to move through this area, eat as much grass as they possibly can. And as it starts warming up, they'll probably then head towards water. But for now, definitely is my favorite animal, like a zebra. And the reason being is because you'll see now when they turn, especially this one that we're looking at, of course the stripe pattern is very beautiful. And you even notice like between these darker stripes, there's these lighter stripes called shadow stripes. And every single zebra has a unique stripe pattern, almost like our fingerprints. But if you look at the neck, have you noticed that the stripes run from the neck into the mane? And that the mane from between the shoulders to between the ears is exactly the same height. You'll see now, especially if the one like lifts up their head and they start turning more towards us. I mean, even if you look at the stripe pattern on the legs and the bum area of both of these zebras, you'll notice that they are quite different from one another. Just look at the stripes that run into the mane. So the other reason why it's also my favorite is, I don't know if any of the kids know this, but a group of zebra together is called a herd or a dazzle of zebra. And it's a very beautiful name. Now you notice there was a bird that just flew past. Just want to see if we can see where it landed. Oh, there it is. So Owen, can you see just slightly right of it, there's two blackish birds. You'll have to just... KLM age 15, very good question. So normally each track, I'll get back to that question of yours now. I just wanted to point out these two birds before we head back to the zebra. So these two birds, one of the starbirds we find in the area. So it's a very special bird that we see. You'll notice the very long tail, bit of black on the shoulders and on the rump area. It's called the magpie shrike, and they're possibly just sitting there waiting for the zebras to move through the grass and disturb some of the insects, and then they'll go and catch the insects. But to get back to your question, so how I know what tracks we're looking at is, so with the tracks in the road, there's often a bit of a shadow that's cast on the track, depending on which direction the light comes from. If it's very early in the morning, it makes it hard, but if the sun is behind you or in front of you, it's easier to track. But then, based on the shape of the track or the shape that the light catches it, you can almost distinguish, maybe it looks like possibly a hyena, possibly a leopard, or maybe a lion, depending on the size of it, or possibly even zebra. So normally with hooved animals, so let's say zebra, wildebeest, buffalo, giraffe, when they move, they actually churn up the soil a bit. So you'll see there's tracks, but it looks like someone has cut into the actual ground. But if it's a cat, it's just a poor imprint that's made on top of it. And if it's elephants, it's these massive tubular tracks that you find on the road. That you could possibly use, or maybe they could have dragged their trunks. So it looks like a drag mark on the road. So there's a few things you can use, but sometimes with the predators, you can't necessarily, if you're driving, you have to sometimes stop and actually get out and have a look at the tracks to be able to see if it's that. Normally, if there's a tracker sitting on the front seat, it's a little bit easier to do it because then at least they can sit in front and they can actually look at the track while we're driving. But for us sitting here on the driver's seat, it's a little bit more difficult to do that. Just to show you, if Owen zooms out, just to show you in relation to where we are now. So I mean, from here on, it's difficult to see over the vehicle to look at the tracks there. So if I see a track, I might just stop, walk around and have a look. Otherwise, if the track's right next to me, I can look right next to him in the vehicle. But you'll notice there's a seat right over there. So normally when we have guests, there's a tracker that would sit on that seat and so then look down onto the road. So then at least when we drive, he'll be able to see it. We won't drive over the tracks because often from here you might drive over the tracks before you eventually see them. So it just makes it a bit easier for us to spot the animal tracks. But this is one of my favorite areas on the reserve. So we just want to quickly have a look at this bit. Yeah. Amelia, age 13, that's a very good question. So it all depends. Sometimes a herd could be possibly 2 females and 1 male. And sometimes it can be as big as 12, 13. But on average, I would say you'll probably be looking at 1 male and 7 females that will be in a herd. Does it look like there's a bird on this one's nose, or is that just the stripe pattern? It's just interesting. Oh, just the stripe pattern. Molly, age 14, that's a very good question. Do zebras get along with some of the other animals? You often find leopards, especially if you look at some of the documentaries. Did I say leopards or zebra? So with the sorry, let me just rephrase it. So with the zebra, often you find them a lot with wildebeest or possibly impala or giraffes. The giraffes, or the reason why they join up with other animals is because of safety and numbers. The more eyes, the more ears, the safer they feel. So what they would do is there's also a very mutual relationship between zebra and wildebeest. You'll find that zebra often eat the taller grass, exposing the shorter, sweeter grass for the wildebeest for them to eat. And that's why often you find a lot of zebra and a lot of wildebeest together. If you look at some of the documentaries on the Great Migration, you'll find a lot of that. But if you find impala, maybe giraffe, possibly more wildebeest, or even like something like a duiker that might be near the zebra, it is just because safety and numbers. They know that they're not a threat. And because they know they're not a threat, they just know at least with the more eyes and the more ears there, the safer they would be. And everything in the bush is regarding or revolves around survival. And for them, they'll use anything and any other animal in order to do so. Sarah, age 8, I would say the reason why they're called a dazzle, I'm going to ask Owen just to focus here, because, just quick wipe, so just bear with us, and then we'll get to that question. So, with the zebras, it's thought that because of their stripe patterns, you can imagine, let's say there's a zebra here and a zebra here, whenever they move and they stand close together, it looks like almost one animal. And when a predator runs towards them, let's say a pride of lions had to hunt them, as soon as they run away, it actually, like, all the stripe creates like an optical illusion as they run, almost like a dazzle, and hence the name a dazzle of zebra. This one is enjoying the breakfast. Oh, they are just such beautiful animals. And the only thing, like, I don't know, what is the bird right next to that zebra? So for age 14, that's a really good question. I'm not too sure. I do know that under the mane, like, there's a lot of fat reserves. But I do think the main in this way would also probably be, I think it's more for camouflage than anything else. It actually, like, you can just see how the stripes go all the way up to the top of the neck. But other than that, I'm not too sure if it has any other very significant part to play. I would like to know from the viewers if anyone has any other idea or possibly an indication of why that could be. And also what I'll try and do is I'll try and see if I can read up a little bit more about it. If we do see them this afternoon, I'll be able to have a better answer than that. But from my understanding, I know under the mane there's quite a lot of fat reserves. And then, of course, if you look at the stripes that go all the way up, my interpretation would be it helps to break up the outline of the body. So it just helps with that camouflage. So what we're going to do now is we're going to carry on, see if there's any signs of still carrying on in these open areas to look out for possibly wild dogs and cheetah. But if we don't see anything as we move closer to the river, I think we're going to try and see if we can find some lions. But for now, while we do that, let's head across to David and hear if he has an update for us.
Welcome back. We have been doing a spot of tracking, been up and down, off and around the vehicle. We had some male leopard tracks heading east from here. We're now back at the dam, and we followed them down into a drainage line. We can't drive there anymore, so we're just going to loop around and see if we can pick up on something. Might as well have a quick hello, good morning to the hippo. But if no more sign of that leopard, then I'm going to head on back down to Treehouse Dam and see if we can pick up the tracks where we left them last night and see which way they went. I did hear a lion calling. It's possibly what you heard on the dam cam, but sounded very far away. Sounded towards Buffelshoek side. Some bird life down here on the water, little grebes, and what else do we have here? There's a heron on the just to the left of those little guys on the stick down here. It looks quite hidden. You zoom in on that heron, just double check what it is. Looks like a green-backed heron, yep. A beautiful green-backed heron. Wonder what it's having a go at. Eating something. Perhaps tadpoles? Can you see what it's eating? Insects of some sort. The diet is generally aquatic. Insects, frogs, tadpoles. Whatever it is, there seems to be a lot of them. Look how accurate it is. Every single strike is a successful bite. Must be tadpoles. Hard to see. Something very small. Very nice, lovely little peaceful morning at the dam. Oliver, you're 13 years old. Good morning and welcome to the show. You've asked how many hippos could be in this dam. Right now there's only one. There could be more. Could very well be a little pod of hippo, big enough to support a pod. And hippo come and go, they move from water sources. But at the moment only one, and I've only actually ever seen one here. I can't remember there being more. Where's the hippo? Gone under. I see another heron just way on the other opposite side of the dam there. Not a green-backed heron. It's much larger. It's a grey heron. A little bit left of that, brother. And keep going. Keep going. I think it's on the other side. It's very far. Got it. There it is, Mr. Grey Heron. Also looking for a snack, no doubt. These are excellent at fishing. With their beaks they can catch and pierce fish, swimming fish. Very accurate. Always fascinates me how accurate birds are with their beaks. Even watching little green-backed heron this morning picking at tadpoles or whatever it's fishing for. It's so accurate. Or you watch a hornbill with its big yellow banana-looking beak picking ants or termites or whatever it's grabbing off the floor. It's perfectly accurate. Scott, you 13 years old. You've asked, do hippos spend most of their time in the water or in the land? And most of the time is spent in the water. They'll spend generally the whole day in the water, all the daylight hours. And once the sun goes down, then they'll leave their little pool of water and head off in somewhere in search of some nice green grass. And they try and be back in the water before sunrise. They are quite sensitive to the sun. Their skin doesn't like to be dried out and in direct exposure to the sun, so they like to be in the water during the daylight hours. This is where they feel comfortable. This is where they feel safe, in the water. I wonder where our water monitor is that we saw the other day. Should be out sunning itself somewhere, but I don't see it. There's that little grebe you've got there. Oh, so cute, man. Look at this one right down here. Oh, just dove away. When it comes back, I'll tell you. They're very cute little duck dives to go and find whatever they're looking for down there. Well, it's officially in the kids show, but you can still send in your questions, kids, and everyone else welcome to send in questions. Well, I thought our little grebe that was right down here was going to resurface, but we've got these guys racing across the waterway. Very cute. You can just imagine those little legs pedaling at 100 miles an hour below that little body. Very cute birds, that youngster trying to keep up. Well, speaking of birds, I believe we've got a very cool bird over on Ngala, so let's send you over there and see what they have.
So we just found some southern ground hornbills, but what we want to do is we'll try and be quiet for a little while, just so that you can hear their call. Megan, like how beautiful this is. So doesn't it just sound like the sound of an African drum in the distance? And so often early in the morning, whenever you try and listen out to possibly if there's anything in the bush, you'll often hear early on in the morning, this is one of the first calls you'll be hearing. And the thing is, this is just one that we can hear calling that's on this branch. The others are just off to the right. So this is probably a little family unit that got split up. And now it's just calling early on in the morning just to establish and find out exactly where the others are. They know where they are, and I think eventually from here on they'll probably move to the ground. And you can see like longbill, and early on it was rubbing up against the branch, so they do catch quite a bit of snakes, any insects, so that probably as it warms up and they can see a bit better, they'll come down onto the ground and start moving. And look out for possibly some breakfast. But let's just listen out again. You can see this is such a deep call that this whole bird, you can see even the tail moving whenever it's calling, and the wings. So you can see it expands its lungs quite a bit in order to make that sound. And you can hear it quite far. Like I think you can possibly, if they had to estimate it, you'll probably be able to hear it almost up to 2 kilometers away. So all the viewers can probably imagine, like early on this morning, so look at how misty it is. So just to paint the picture, so it's very misty. Sarah, good question. So this hornbill here is called the southern ground hornbill. And that red that you see under the chin is almost like an air sac that it has. So it's just the facial skin color, like especially under the throat as well. So the females and the males are very hard to tell apart. But if you're quite close, the females, like under that red patch there, they have a bare patch with a bit of blue. But it is hard to see, especially in this light. But so just to paint a picture, so here, you can imagine it's quite misty. You can't see far at all. I think the furthest we can see, and then the mist completely hides away anything at the back, is probably around 80 meters. You can't see further than that. And so early on, as we were sitting close to the zebra, we can just hear them in the background, like calling. And so now I can imagine misty, like a few of the trees that you can just see the silhouettes of, and just hear this African drum sound. Let's see if this hornbill is going to sharpen its beak now, because often if they, there we go. Because often after they call like that, especially if they sit on a dead tree, they'll sharpen their beak with a possibly a branch, or if there's a rock nearby, you can often see them like rubbing their beak against it. Maybe even just cleaning it. Don't know if this morning if they might have already started like looking out for possibly breakfast, and then as they flew up onto the top just to use it as a vantage point, probably just quickly cleaning that bill before they carry on. But I think for now we're going to carry on. Let's leave them be, and then we're going to start heading towards the river from here. But what a beautiful sighting this morning. Wow, that's pretty special. One of my favorite calls. So while we're going to carry on to look out for possibly lines, there's actually a jumping spider moving towards the lens now. You'll probably see it moving up the lens. Oh, it just went up. But while we're having a look at this jumping spider, make sure it doesn't jump on Owen. We're going to send you across to David with the spider as well.
We've got a very cool spider here. It's one of my favorites. It's pretty big. It's called a garden orb. How beautiful is she? Similar to the golden orb, one of the easiest ways to tell them apart if you're just looking at the web is that the garden orb has that, see that white zigzag? It's unique and it's called a stabulamentum. We have different theories as to why she does that. The most common theories, hypotheses, are that because of the UV reflection in that silk, or that web, it makes it easier for birds and large animals to see the web, so that it doesn't get damaged unnecessarily, and also it attracts insects which can see in that ultraviolet spectrum, attracts them to the web. So I suppose a twofold use for having that stabilimentum, that obvious white zigzag. It's often all you see of the web. To make it more visible to large animals and birds that would destroy the web accidentally, and then also to attract insects, attract her next snack. Very, very cool spider. Samantha, you're 15. You've asked why are they called garden orbs and golden orbs. What's happened? Something's landed in a web. Hey, you guys are witnessing. Oh, that is cool. Look at that. She's just caught. Looks like a little grasshopper. Just landed in her web. And she moved with lightning speed and managed to trap it before it could get free. She's completely wrapped it in a cocoon now. And it is going nowhere. Just appreciate the utter perfection of the spider. How synchronized its movements are as it brings that web out of its abdomen and wraps up that little grasshopper. And carries its prey to the center of the web. Look at that web as it's coming out. She uses her legs so meticulously. Very, very cool. That is something very special. Many people have seen the leftovers of insects and webs as they hang there. But very, very few people have had the privilege of actually witnessing what you just witnessed. It takes many, many hours of patience staring at a spider web to be able to witness a live kill. Cindy Yuhu, I agree. Many people want to see a live kill, and that definitely counts. Samantha, you were asking earlier about the golden orb and garden orb name. Obviously the Latin names are more descriptive, but in layman's terms, in common naming of animals, we generally use something that reminds us of them, and golden orbs have a very golden web. You can see it in the sunlight. It's got a yellow golden hue. And that's where that name comes from. And then the garden orbs, I can only imagine it's from people seeing a lot of them in their gardens. Common garden spider, so that's where it gets its name from. We're gonna just have a little bit of a closer look. So we can just start up the vehicle and move it slightly just to really appreciate the beauty of this spider. This arachnid. Remember, we get two major different types of spiders. The ones that live in the trees and the ones that live on the ground. I think that's going to work for you, brother. A little bit closer there. Let Alex really show you the detail of this beautiful spider. So this is one of the araneomorphs. That's what they get called. The ones that live in trees, or they are aerial. They spin their webs in an aerial manner up off the ground. And you get your mygalomorphs, the ones that live on the ground, like your baboon spiders. Lots of little spiders. We've got so many different species of spiders, thousands. And we're still finding more and identifying more. It really is a whole another world when you start studying spiders.
Catch the lights.
See how they blend in to try and find it there with the camera.
Let's see if we can.
Looks like she's already feeding. Oftentimes they'll wait. She was hungry. Peter, you've asked, do we ever see baby spiders? And we do. You do see them. With the orbs, typically at the end of the season, which is actually now, around now, as the winter sets in, they will lay their eggs and then climb up off their web, sometimes down onto the ground, sometimes onto a tree branch, and then they die. They don't live very long, just under a year. And the golden orb lives around 350 something days. I'm not sure of the garden orb, but I imagine it's the same. And then those babies will have to make their own way. But you do sometimes see them on the webs. Yeah, me 16. Thanks for your question. You've asked how can we tell if it's a female versus a male. With the orbs and most species of spider, the female's much larger than the male. I'll actually try and see if I can look in a book while I'm chatting to you and see if I can find a picture of the difference in size. Generally with the orbs, you'll see the male off to the side of the web. Much smaller, much less impressive. So I know that this is a female because she's so big and beautiful. It's like a golden orb.
finding it in my book. Well, this has been super cool. Really, really an awesome sighting. Very, very special to have witnessed that. We're going to head on it, carry on, see if we can pick up on those lion tracks we've been looking for. While we do that, let's send you over to Tristan with the big bird. We do have a big bird, a beautiful big bird. It's probably one of the most striking in terms of colors and the way that it looks. And I haven't seen one since I've been back, so nice to see a bit of a yawn. Morning, saddle-billed stork. Just waking up, I think like all of us, catching a little bit of sun on a coolish morning and making sure that it just wakes up on the right side of the bed. A little bit of a yawn. You can see it's a male from here, which is quite nice because sometimes it's tricky to see it, but just because he's sort of got a clear background, you can just make out his yellow wattles that sit underneath his beak. So those yellow wattles are indicative of a male, also a dark eye. The female will have quite a light yellow eye, so much easier to sort of ID male and female when you're a bit closer. But from here, at least the wattles kind of wagging in the breeze are a good thing. Now, these particular birds normally are in pairs, so I'm quite surprised that it's just the one. The ones that we see regularly in the area that I'm in are supposed to be two of them, so I don't know if the other one is potentially at Buffelshoek Dam at the moment, and this one is just hanging out here, and it hasn't quite made its way towards the dam yet. But these guys will be hoping that these dams start to recede, because the reason for that is that as the water starts to go down, so there's going to be cracked mud that's going to develop. Now, that cracked mud is the perfect safe haven for things like frogs, and it's the perfect place for these guys to go hunting. And they'll use that big beak and they'll kind of jam it in those cracks and be able to pull out any little frogs or anything that's kind of stuck inside there. And they're pretty efficient with the way that they do things. I've seen them take quite large prey items before, so quite large fish, and in particular terrapins, which is crazy. I remember seeing one a few years ago that grabbed a terrapin, and the terrapin was, I mean, big. It didn't look like this guy was going to swallow it, and it ended up eventually somehow getting it down its gullet, and you could actually see the terrapin sliding down its neck, its entire neck distended to the shape of the terrapin. And then it went down, and it kind of got stuck about halfway and just stayed there. And we sat with this bird for a good 45 minutes, seeing if this terrapin would go down all the way. And by the time we left, it still was sitting in its throat. It had moved a little bit down, but it was kind of just stuck in the throat area, which can't be a very pleasant thing to have a terrapin stuck in your throat. But I saw it then a few days later, and it was fine, and the terrapin wasn't there. So either it regurgitated it or it ended up actually getting it down. But I was pretty surprised at how big a terrapin it went after. The fact that it distended its entire neck to the shape of the terrapin is probably a good indication of how big that food source actually was. Can't imagine it would have been comfortable. A terrapin has a shell and everything else. It must have been a pretty horrible experience having one of those stuck in your throat. That's for sure. But isn't that just the most stoic creature, kind of standing on its dead tree? You can see they are big birds. If you look at this, the tree itself, obviously branches and things are difficult to make out, but if BK zooms out, you'll see the height of that tree, which will give you an idea of just how big that bird is. They really are gigantic things. They beautiful when they fly, because they have these big black and white wings, and as they fly over, they kind of flap, and they generally fly quite low with their neck stretched out, and that combination of those bright reds and yellows and blacks and whites as they come over is incredibly pretty. I always like watching saddle-billed storks, and like I say, lethal hunters, these guys. They're able to go after a multitude of different things. But the reason we're up in this area is because we're still tracking this leopard. I have a strong suspicion it's Mulawati. I mean, obviously this could be a futile exercise, but we got to try. You got to keep trying to track him as much as possible in the hope that we can get him to relax a little bit more and become more habituated. But it's amazing. I was saying to BK how a leopard can be a sneaky creature. This male leopard walked straight over the dam wall in front of the dam cam and clearly wasn't picked up at all. So it gives you an idea of how they can even walk past technology and still sometimes not be caught out. And so he's covered a lot of ground already. He's kind of come all the way from the Zoe side, and he's now crossing through the drainage. The last tracks we had were going into the drainage line off Gowrie Cut Line, heading towards where we are this side. So I'm just checking around Buffelshoek Dam area just to see if he pops out. But his foot is massive, so it's why I think it's Mulawati. Ladna Age8, no idea why that beaks would be such bright orange, such a bright color. It's not used in any way for hunting or anything like that. And when they're young and they're vulnerable, they don't have these bright orange beaks like this. And so a lot of the time when people see colors that are black and red or black and yellow, black, red, yellow, those generally are what's called aposematic coloration. So that garden orb-web spider you saw had quite striking colors. And that's normally to tell predators that they're in some way venomous or toxic or something like that. But a saddle-billed stork is not those things, and at the size that it's at now, there's very, very, very few things that would kill a saddle-billed stork at that size. You know, the only thing really would be like something like a leopard. Most birds of prey are not going to be able to attack an adult saddle-billed stork. So the coloration must be more to just tell each other that they are adults and therefore able to breed, and so it's maybe a way of attracting mates. But both female and male will have these red and yellow beaks, but there's no kind of, well, I've certainly never read anything that says there's a specific reason why they have such bright colored beaks. But it's a good question. You know, these are the things that lead us to new discoveries as people questioning these kinds of things. All right, saddle-billed stork, we're going to leave you to it. We're going to carry on. And that relies heavily on a sound in the bottom, so I'm gonna go still and see if it gets better. Hopefully it does. So within South Africa, they are fairly endangered, and the reason why is that they rely on a healthy water system. Now, outside of game reserves within South Africa, a lot of our river systems are heavily polluted. A lot of our wetland areas have been destroyed, and therefore their habitat has been decreased. And so the numbers of saddle-billed storks is not great within South Africa. If you go into places like Botswana, and parts of the Zambezi, in Zambia, these guys become a lot more common. But here in South Africa, really, the Kruger National Park is one of the sort of real safe houses for them. And within that system, I'm not sure what the current number is, but a few years ago, there was only 90 breeding pairs, which is not a lot of adult birds that are breeding. And so, yes, they are pretty endangered. We don't see that many of them. It's a shame. I wish we saw more. All right. I'm going to leave this guy. I'm going to try to see if we can figure out where this male leopard went and what he's been up to. While I do that, let's send you up to Ngala. Apparently they are driving in the mist.
So there's just some tracks in the road. I just want to quickly have a look and see what they are. They might just be hyena, but remember we said we possibly want to see if there's any wild dogs around, so I just want to have a look. Yeah, it looks like there was just a couple of hyenas that came down the road, and there's actually a little patch right in front where it looks like they might have laid down. But let's carry on with our search. So I think with the mist and being so cold this morning, you see how I immediately grabbed my blanket over my legs. I think all the animals might be having a bit of a sleep in. But what we're trying to do now is we are still exploring some of the open areas. So we don't just want to give up on our wild dog and cheetah search. We actually want to give it a good go. And if we don't find any fresh tracks or signs of them, then we can say, all right, you know what, we've given it a go. Let's focus on possibly looking for lions. But Sean and Rowan, as we speak, they're currently looking out for lions. Now, even though we do see some hyena tracks, it's not a bad thing. Because often with wild dogs, whenever they move, the hyenas would follow them. So as soon as they make a kill, the hyenas will quickly go and grab. If the pack is small enough, they'll go grab, try and steal it away from them. But if the pack is big, of course, the hyenas would just wait on the outskirts. The African or the wild dogs, or the cheetah even, they'll eat as little bit as they possibly, or as much as they possibly can, but they can't, of course, eat all the bigger bones or possibly the head. And so then the hyenas would go and grab that, and of course they are able, with their strong jaws and teeth, to break down some of the bigger bones and then eat that. So it's not a bad thing if we see some hyena tracks. Actually very good. If we do spot on a hyena, it would also be quite nice. But sometimes if we do follow wild dogs and you find some fresh hyena tracks, it's definitely worth following them. Now those hyena tracks that I've seen here, because of the mist, it's hard to see when it was. Was it from yesterday or maybe today? But it is going in the opposite direction from where we came from, and we didn't see anything there. So we're going to carry on and just see if there's any other tracks or signs. Now in this area here that we're driving in, there's often a little family of jackal that stay here. So I think the other day we counted nearly 5 jackal. And there's a few of these dead trees around. And so Charlie, age 13, very good question. So normally what happens is, it all depends on what animal's running towards you. Now, let's say I just walked in the bush. I got off on foot here and I started walking. So if a lion had to charge me, the best thing you can do, or even a leopard, is to stand still and shout at it as loud as you possibly can, just to try and intimidate it. Because when it charges, it doesn't necessarily go out with the thing, or it doesn't go out to necessarily kill you. It just goes out to tell you, listen, I don't want you here, I need you to move off. However, the instinct is to chase whatever runs away from them. So if you don't run away from them, then of course, there's no, like, they're going to be intimidated by you and eventually turn around. But the biggest thing here is you need to try and move away as far as you possibly can, but not run away from them. If it was something like an elephant, sometimes the more excited you get, the more stressed you might make the elephant. So if it charges and there's no other way to go, the best thing is to possibly just stand still and face the elephant. Is try and be as calm as you possibly can, but try not to run away or try to make too much of a commotion. If it is something like a buffalo bull that is charging you at that moment, I would probably say that you get out of that area as quickly as you possibly can, because unfortunately with the buffalo bull, if it starts charging, especially if it's very close, there's very few things that will stop it. So then the best thing to do then is just to get out of the way. Annabella, age 13. Very good question about the difference between a wild dog and a hyena. Now, there are some more hyena tracks here that I want to have a look at, but I want to show you, because at least if we do see it, you'll be able to... Sorry, I just want to quickly refer to my book here. So just to show you the difference between a hyena and a wild dog is, like, if you look at the hyena, you'll notice quite a bit of a spot pattern. Like, especially the one that we find here is called the spotted hyena. So very round ears. You'll see it has a sloping back. So the front legs are quite stocky in comparison to the hind legs. And also it looks like the back slopes down a little bit in an angle. And also if you look at the overall design of them, they almost look like, if you had to compare it against an animal, almost like a small bear in a way. But if we had to compare that now against the wild dogs, which would be these ones right over here. Sorry, let me just quickly grab it. My fingers don't want to work with me this morning. But if I move across to the wild dog here, you'll notice very interesting stripe pattern, or more like a few blotches. You'll notice there's quite a bit of white on this one right over here. So if you, and I'm going to ask if you can move like towards the picture right here at the top. You'll notice quite a bit of white right over here. Look at the white at the end of the tail. And the other name for them is they often referred to as a painted wolf, or the Cape wolf, is some of the other names that they are associated with. And the other thing is about the wild dogs is you can also look at the face, more slenderly built. They basically look very much in relation to that of a domestic dog. So probably if you had to, it's hard because I mean they can't be domesticated like most dogs. But if you had to compare them, they probably look something in the lines of a German Shepherd in terms of their design and how they look. So that's the differences, and that's what we're looking out for. Now, wild dogs can travel quite a bit. Hyenas as well, but wild dogs are very social animals, and so whenever they move, they can move. Well, I've seen wild dogs covering at least so they can travel at least close to nearly 30 kilometers a day, and they move quite quickly. They can run up to 56 kilometers an hour, so let's say nearly 23 miles an hour, and they can keep that up for 6-7 kilometers. But while we do that, we're going to link to someone at Juma. I didn't catch the name. Who's it? Oh, we're going to link to David. I hope he's well this morning and he can give us a good update. I'm excited. I wonder what they're going to find this morning.
Well, we have just found our lion tracks, so that's very exciting. Actually, Alex spotted them. Not just an excellent cameraman, but also an aspiring tracker. Our plan was to come down. Remember, like we said last night when we left, those Nkuhumas going down to the dam to drink. We speculated as perhaps they would follow up on these buffalo that BK and I had here yesterday, so we're right in that same spot. And True's Bob, they have followed up on the buffalo, so that's kind of exciting. As you can see here, down by my foot, this is fresh buffalo dung, and all around it are the lion tracks, large females and the cubs. So they've all walked down this road following the very clear buffalo sign. So what we're going to do now is try and follow it and see how far we can get. Hopefully they are still on Juma. Hopefully they haven't crossed over. That remains to be seen. Let's see how we go. If they stick on the road, it'll be pretty easy. If they go off into the bush, it's going to be a bit of slow going. Going to have to get off and walk a bit. But hopefully we can catch up with them. Taylor Swift, you've asked, are lions nocturnal? And for the most part, we get them moving at night. I just want to show you these tracks quickly before we move on too far. We do get them moving at night, quite often in the cooler parts of the evening. But they also do tend to move during the day sometimes, although, as you might know, a lot of time it's a lot of sleeping during the day when it's a lot warmer. But they are a bit of a mixed lines, a little bit nocturnal, a little bit diurnal. But you are right in assuming that they are mostly nocturnal. So there's so many tracks here that it's kind of difficult to single out specific tracks. But I'm going to circle the female, the lioness, and I'm going to circle the cub. These two nice tracks. You see those okay, Alex? Move the grass out the way so you can see that one better. And then also, we've got buffalo tracks that they are following. So it's a good start. It's a good start to the morning. It's taken a while though, it's taken us a couple hours. I thought we would have found them a bit earlier, but found them we have, so let's try and follow up on it. Always exciting when you get to this point. Miam, age 16. You've asked how can we tell how old a footprint is? Well, let's stop and chat about it again. Here's a great example. So, first of all, when people say they can tell it to within the minute, that's generally not true unless there is an extenuating circumstance, which means there's something happened that they might know about. So, I know that I drove here last night with BK, and I left tracks on these roads, on this road specifically, and all these lion tracks are now over my tracks. So I know that it was since yesterday at around 5-6 o'clock, most certainly. But knowing that we were with the lion at about, say, 6:30, and they were by Treehouse Dam, so it took them about an hour to get here. Knowing lions, they move a bit slowly sometimes, so somewhere probably in the late evening. And then I can narrow it right down to that it wasn't 15 minutes ago, because there's insects in their tracks. And if you can you come down here to my finger, Alex? It's a little antlion busy making a little burrow. And that is inside the track that we are following. So that shows me that these lions weren't here 5 minutes ago, because I know it takes about, say, 15 odd minutes for an antlion to build its little funnel there. And then if we look for long enough, I'm sure we'll find some birds crossing over these tracks, which would give us an indication that it was probably during the evening, because I know like a dove will generally only come out in the morning. So to answer your question about how I know how old tracks are, I try and use as many other factors as I can. Insects, birds, other vehicles driving over the tracks. If there was a little drizzle this morning and the drizzle is on top of the tracks, then I can use that time of drizzle to kind of guesstimate the age of the tracks. It's not a perfect science, but those are some of the methods that we use. I don't want to spend too long here. I want to get going on these tracks so that we can try and catch up. Tasha, you've asked how can I tell that the lion tracks are female? The females are quite a bit smaller than the male pug marks, and I also know that they're female because I was at the Pride last night and there were no males with them, so Although that's not dead certain, it does give me a good basis to go on. But generally the size, you can very easily see if it's a big male. The tracks are quite different in size. Well, we've come to a little junction here. I just want to see which way they went. I don't see the tracks going on either of these two roads. I think they went into the block. So let's have a look. But while we try and figure out which way they went, let's send you over to Tristan as he bumbles about in the sun.
Alright, well, we're still looking for these male leopard tracks. Unfortunately, the last area that they're in is in a very, very bad signal area for us, so I can't really spend time there. So I'm just trying to do loops quite far afield just to try and see if he's come all the way through. He might have just stopped in that drainage line and lay up. I know that a lot of leopards use that drainage line, and it's always been a popular spot for as long as I can remember. I mean, between Karula and Tingana and Mvula, all of them, they all use that, have been in that drainage line. So it's a popular area, but it's so overgrown and thick there at the moment that, like I say, the signal is really, really bad. And we didn't pick up anything coming out on the other side. It's not that to say that it didn't, it's just that that road is so incredibly hard where we had that saddlewood stalk, that if a leopard did cross there, the chance of seeing that track is almost zero from the driver's seat. If you had a tracker, a little bit different, but from our side it's going to be near impossible to spot those tracks crossing that hardness of road. So what I'm going to do is I just want to check quickly to the east and see what's happening, but I'm still very confused by these lions. I mean, we had very clear audio of them fighting and growling, which is generally a sign that they've got a kill, and yet we found no sign of them. Anyway, alright, so I'm going to head to the eastern side, just keep checking around. In the meantime though, I'm going to send you across to Nikki, who's got a monkey.
So we just found this troop of baboons, and the ones that we have in the middle of the screen is actually a mother with a youngster that just jumped off and he moved into the grass, so she's probably going to go and fetch him. And like, he was pretty young, so he's just exploring the area, so probably just grab and put him back on her back or even onto her belly. Just give it some time, see if they move out. But you can see there's a whole troop that's now moving in at the as we speak. There's a little one. See how mom's just moving, maybe just moving one or two rocks, see if there's anything underneath. It's quite a big troop. Look at this big one that just came off from the right. Wow. Look at the size of him in comparison to the others. He must probably be one of the dominant males that's leading this troop. It also looks like he has a little limp, so he's probably been in a few fights, or maybe. Lisa, I agree with you. The little ones are absolutely adorable. And the whole way they move, and sometimes, especially, you should see some of the bigger ones would just move and they'll like flick the rocks up, and the little one would actually go and try and grab something before there's even anything there. So you can see they're very, very curious. But just look at the whole troop moving in. Look at that one there, right in the middle of the road. Did you see that little one that just jumped off Mom's back? Just have a look. See how he's moving towards that dung? And I think let's try and follow that little one around, because he looked like he's up to a lot of mischief this morning. Look at that. I think this little one got the manual wrong. See how the mom's eating like the very top of the grass and some of the plants there, and you find this little one's actually just biting the stem. I think he got it all, like completely wrong.
And you can relocate to the private and pick up line.
I just quickly, while we're watching these baboons, just want to respond to Rowan quickly. Copy that, Rowan. I'm just online. I'll respond soon. Wow, just look at the whole troop. There's even a small youngster also coming in the back. Pablo, that's a very good question. So there aren't any chimps in this area. You found more the chimpanzees and the gorillas up more in the central part of Africa. So the Congo, Rwanda, more central. But down here, it's basically vervet monkeys and the baboons, or monkeys and baboons that we mainly get. So have a look at this one right over here, and it looks like the tail, half the tail is missing. Probably come into the screen now. If he or she plays along, it looks like one of the youngsters, and I wonder how this one lost the tail. Might have been from like either playing with a sibling too hard, maybe one could have bitten the tail off, or possibly could have been from a predator. Be interesting to know. Look at that. So there's a big open grassland on this side that the whole troop has now started to fan out in this open area. But you'll see the majority of the bigger ones, so the more the alpha males, they're the ones that are actually leading this whole troop. So they're the ones in the front. And then as soon as there's any danger, they'll also probably be the ones that will try and protect the troop against any possible danger. So what they're doing now is they're actually fanning in this open area, so that if there's any insects or anything that they flush up, they can go and grab it. Because if they're all close together, then of course some of them aren't going to get any food. So that's why they're fanning out. But you'll see, even when that happens, now and then there'll be one that moves up into a tree that will act as a sentry to make sure there's no predators around. And you can just imagine this whole troop, like the way they found out. As soon as there's any danger, the mothers would immediately grab the youngsters and then go to the nearby trees and just get up the tree as quickly as possible. But often baboons, especially in the bush, they're very, very alert animals. As soon as there's anything, either they hear them or they see them, but very good eyesight. Cam Hopper, very good question. So I've never seen baboons send marking, so there's no need for them to send mark, because it's unlike most animals where a male, there'll be a dominant male and they'll scent mark this area, or a troop that scent marks. There's no need for them. They're very gregarious animals. In other words, they do occur in big numbers. And it's often when the competition for food becomes very scarce where they'll start breaking up into smaller groups. But they can wander quite far, maybe up to 5 to 10 kilometers away from their roosting spot. So normally they'll have a central area where they go back every night. And then after that, of course, or from that area, they'll start moving. And normally it's 5 kilometers in either direction. So we've just lost some signal there. We're just trying to reconnect. Here we go.
Well, unfortunately, it sounds like there's a few little gremlins lurking this morning. And so you guys are back on our side now. We haven't found a single track since we last saw you. I've checked the entire eastern boundary, just partly, not only for this male, but just to check if there's any sign of Tundi coming in, but there's not a single track for her anywhere. The only thing that was on Cheetah Cut Line was lots of buffalo tracks going into Torchwood, which I think is the two different herds that David and I had yesterday afternoon. I think they've both gone in that direction. So no lion tracks on top of them. So if the lions were on top of the buffalo tracks where David was, then maybe they caught something somewhere there, which will be good. Hopefully David can find what they caught, and if they did catch a buffalo, hopefully it's a big one that they can spend lots of time on our side eating. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to head towards Buffelshoek Dam and see if there's any sign of anything there, see if there's any track I can pick up, and then I'll check Nyala Road, just trying to kind of work my way back to where the last track was in areas that I know I can at least, you know, get some semblance of signal, and so that's the plan. Whether or not it's going to work, I'm not quite sure. If it's Mulawati, I mean, the chances of us seeing him in daylight like this is pretty slim. And I strongly think that it is. The size of his foot is big. It's not a small foot at all. It's definitely larger than the tracks for Hukamuri. So I suspect that this is him. And it just makes sense. Just want to listen quickly now. Sorry, I just got an update from the eastern side, which is very weird because of where I'm sitting. This is not a place where we should theoretically get the eastern channel signal. Just want to hear where it is. Sounds like maybe on Little Gowrie. Yeah, Little Gowrie. So it's Sibui's cubs that they've just found. Crazy that we're picking up signal from up here for our eastern side. And it's a pity that those cubs are on Little Gowrie. They're dead center on Little Gowrie, right on the Mulawati. So it's not far from our southern boundary, but I don't think she'll bring them north towards Twin Dams. There's water there, there's structure. So it's kind of the perfect place for them, which is a pity. I was hoping they were going to be much closer to the Cheetah boundary, because that would have definitely allowed us to be able to have a chance to see them. I should have actually gone to Cheetah this morning. I completely forgot about those tracks I had last night, because we had tech issues last night with Rusty. Rusty blew a fuse, but it took us a while to figure that out, and so we had no power to the camera. And so I was on the tracks for what looked like Kuchava and the cub, and then had to kind of abandon that search to come all the way back to camp. I should have actually gone there. I completely forgot, but I got excited about the fact that we had audio for lions and tracks for a male leopard. Got badly sidetracked. Maybe this afternoon I have to go back and try again. Lots of spider webs on this road, BK. Cam Hopper, you could, if you wanted to. It's no problem to make plaster of Paris casts of any tracks and take them home with you. That's really not an issue. In fact, do it for kids every now and then. A lot of the guys on safaris will make casts for kids. Steph at one point was doing quite a lot of them for Blake. But yeah, it's really not a problem. I always thought it would be a good idea to do it, just to see if you can pick up micro differences in the tracks between each individual. So you'd have to know for certain that it's their track. So you'd have to be able to see the animal, walk there, and then you know, okay, this is 100% theirs, and then you're able to take it and then check it. And it would be interesting to see if any of them have like little scars or anything that would make it really easy to tell the difference between them. I think it would take a bit of time, but you could probably do it and get it right. So, but yes, you can take them home. Even if you were a guest to come here, you would be able to make a cast of a track and take it home with you. There's no laws against that. As long as you're not removing animals or anything like that, then generally you're all right. Problem is it takes a bit of time. Obviously, it's not an instant thing to cast a track. You really got to leave it properly, nicely, and make it look good. But the tracking books, funny enough, are the you see are actually photocopies of their builds, which is quite interesting. We've got signal issues here, which is what it is. But anyway, let's send you across to David in the meantime, who's still on the trail of those lines.
So we've just been following these tracks, and they've come through this block. We walked through the block 4 ways and then got back on the vehicle, came around, and now we've just found where the line have drank. Does not look very delicious, this water, but they all drank right here in this soupy water. I don't know, can you see those tracks in the mud there, Alex? And you see down here, if I point, they all came down all around this little pan and had a little drink. I don't know if you can see that from that angle, but
Okay.
does not look like very tasty water, does it? Looks like pea soup. That's interesting. They went up, turned through the block, came down, had a little drink, and now they're carrying on that way. So we're going to have to turn around and go back down to the drainage. Well, this is part of checking lions. I hope we find them. You never really know how far they're going to move. But all we can do is keep following until we either hit a boundary or find them. Just turn around here. Maddie, 13, you've asked, do the big cats hunt or attack each other? And they do attack each other, not very often, but it's called interspecific competition, meaning that predators that rely on similar food sources will often fight when they meet each other. They don't like each other very much. Remember, everything out here is about competition. It's about survival. So when it comes to food, then all predators are in competition to each other in one way or another. Obviously, there's a huge difference between a serval and a lion and what they eat, but instinctively, if a large cat comes across youngsters of another cat species, they will often kill them. Like if a hyena stumbles upon some leopard cubs, the lion cubs unattended, it will kill them. But adults of these large cat species, like you're specifically referring to, probably leopard and lion, will generally just give each other a wide berth and let it be. Fights are uncommon, except when it comes to perhaps a carcass. Maybe there's a leopard on a wildebeest carcass on the ground and hasn't quite managed to get it up a tree yet, and a hungry lion comes walking past, maybe an old male or something, and he will very readily fight that leopard for his kill. This is kind of cool. A very good indication of a dugger boy. A dugger boy, remember, is what we call those old buffalo bulls that are so renowned for being in mud. There's often dried mud on their bums and their backs. And this is a great spot. You can see where a dugger boy came and lay here. Daga means mud, specifically a very thick mud. And this is Daga. If you look down here, look how pasty this is. It's like cement, it's like concrete. And you can see a buffalo came in here, lay down a little bit, rolled around. See how it's all been pushed. You can see its tracks in the mud. And he walked out and carried on his way. They really love this stuff. It's so thick. And it cakes their bodies, protects them from maybe biting flies, or maybe it's a little bit of sun protection. And also the stuff being so thick, it'll suffocate any parasites that are already on the buffalo. And then the buffalo can later give it a nice scratch against a tree and remove those parasites. That's pretty cool. As the winter drags on, you're not going to be seeing much more of these little mud puddles, these little mud wallows. I'm just cleaning my finger on the tire. Well, let's just carry on our pursuit. We're going to have to go back down to the Muwati and follow up the drainage to see if we can intercept where those tracks crossed again. Just plug myself back in here. Well, we go back down into the Muwati and see how far we get with our tracking. Let's send you back over to Ngala with an update.
So unfortunately we lost a little bit of signal where those baboons were, but they weren't doing too much from there. And I remember there was a question asking possibly what was some of the dangers or what could be a potential predator for the baboons. So leopard, sometimes if there's a youngish baboon that's a little bit further away from the troop, it could be potential meal, anything, also lions as well. Lions could possibly go for them. But so there was some great news. Rowan and Sean early on went tracking to see if they can find the rest of the pride for us. And apparently they did. So it's a bit of a drive from where we are now, but we're going to try and get there as fast as possible. We'll take some of the quickest routes to get there. But of course, even though we're heading in that direction, we're still looking out. We haven't seen any signs of wild dogs or cheetah this morning, which is sad. Hopefully this afternoon we can carry on with that search for a little while. See if there's a chance of maybe finding them. But I think for now, while we have the opportunity, let's head across these lines. I don't know if the young male has joined up. I haven't gotten too much to know what's the makeup of the pride at the moment. But I think as soon as we get there, we'll probably know. Now, it'd be interesting to see how far they've moved. Now, based from where they reported them and where they were seen last night, they would have probably moved close to 4 or 5 kilometers during the evening, which is not a big stretch for the lions. And because it's still nice and cool, we really want to get there before they start moving. Because imagine, it's still early part of the morning, there's a bit of a breeze blowing, so they might just use that opportunity to cover a little bit more ground and then probably settle there for the day if it starts warming up. But it's still nice and cold, so I think let's get there. Amelia age 6, I think from what I know and what I've seen is baboons probably have some of the biggest. Like if I had to compare it against a big male lion, his teeth might be slightly bigger, but a big baboon, like their teeth would probably be that size. So let's say if I use my thumb, so basically the size of my thumb would be a big male baboon's teeth. And even with leopard, if they misjudge the size of a baboon and jump on it, that baboon can easily turn around and kill something as big as a leopard. Even though the baboon might be a lot smaller, but those teeth, very powerful, very sharp. So I definitely do not want to get into a little confrontation with the baboon, because I will definitely come out second best. Annabella, that's a very good question. I would say how to predict is normally just based on behavior. So what we try and do is, we know that from some of the predators like lions and possibly leopard, they are going to be moving in the earlier parts of the day or the cooler parts of the day. The animals like wild dogs and possibly cheetah, they'll most likely move when, and it's not always the case. I mean, this is very rough estimates and rough animal behavior we're using, but so they'll normally move when the other predators aren't going to be moving a lot, because in order to avoid that competition, you'll find with elephants and possibly buffalo, the best chances of actually looking for them, if you want to go specifically look for them, is in the warmer parts of the day where they might go and settle down. Buffalo, very water dependent. They need to drink at least twice a day, so normally early part of the morning and later afternoon. So then you know, okay, let me rather go to a waterhole, maybe wait there because there's a chance of buffalo coming down to drink. So basically how we interpret or what we plan to be looking out for that particular day is just based on animal behavior. And also, we'll work together as a group. So I'll say, for example, to Rowan and Short, I'm going to go see this area, see what I can find. Why don't you go this side? And if they find tracks of a pride, they'll go track the pride. If they find tracks of a herd of buffalo, they'll track the herd of buffalo. And so by working together, we then try and find these animals we're looking out for. But normally, it all depends on I think the search is mainly dependent on a lot of their behavior to try and find them. Speaks now, that's a very good question. I think we had a discussion about it the other day. I think as the crow flies, it's close to 50 kilometers, 47 to 50 kilometers. If you have to drive it, like in order to get around out of Ngala and around to get there, oh, and help me right, it's around 2.5 hours. Oh, it's not even it's just over an hour. The main reason why it takes so long is because when you go out of Ngala, you have to go through the Simbambili, so it's a bit of a drive to get out, and then you have to do a wide loop around to get back. So we're going to carry on. Let's get to these lines. While we do that, let's send you across to David for an update.
Well, just still down here in the Mawati. Haven't seen where the tracks have crossed. Just driving very slowly. They were heading down here. What a beautiful spot to be driving nice and slow. You never know, we might find a cat in a tree. The tracks were heading down in this direction. This is where we had the buffalo yesterday evening. Kind of hope to come around the corner and see a bunch of lions lying in the sand. Shashamp, you've asked how old is my hat. Let me think. It's probably about 3-4 years old by now, maybe more, maybe 5. When I got it, my very good mate Lester and I went to the Rogue factory, which is a leather manufacturer, and we got these hats on special because there was something wrong with them. I don't know what was wrong with it, but it was like half price. And ever since then, it's been keeping the sun off my neck. In this industry, you're in the sun all the time, so as you can see, I'm busy glaring. And the hat really helps, so it's been in the bush for many, many days and weeks and years. We don't always get the chance to put on sunscreen. We probably should, but I don't know, you just kind of get a bit lazy with it, so hats are often a better protection from the sun to prevent sun damage. I'm trying not to look like a leather jacket by the time I'm 40, although I don't know how that's going. Battlier, you reckon it looks like I was born with this hat? I wasn't born with it, but I did get married in it, so I guess that's a cool story. Francie, you've asked, do we come across snares on drive? And not normally on a game drive, often more on a bushwalk, because on a bushwalk you obviously in thicker areas that vehicles don't access. Poachers wouldn't put snares within view of the road. They would do it more on game paths and in hidden areas. But in the Sabi Sands, it's very, very good anti-poaching. Obviously, with commercial poaching that is attached to syndicates for high-value animals like rhino and pangolin and the cats, it's become a whole different ball game. The traditional meat poacher, there's a waterbuck. The traditional meat poacher that would set a snare won't really operate in the reserve like this because the risk is just far too high. Obviously they're in an entirely different league, meat poaching, as opposed to the syndicate poaching, and it's very dangerous to be a poacher out here, so meat poachers are not so common in these areas anymore. And there goes the waterbuck. Well, we've just come onto our boundary now. We're going to continue checking it to see if these tracks have crossed over. So let's send you over to Tristan with an elephant.
Indeed, we are with elephants, thanks to the dam cam letting us know. We weren't far away when they were called in, so I was actually coming around to sort of Gallagher Pan area to try and check for these guys, because I heard them this morning outside my room. So I was actually coming to look for them, since we haven't had any luck with our cats this morning. These guys will just have to fill in for the cats at the moment. They've been doing a sterling effort and have been providing a lot of entertainment for us, considering particularly the spotty cats have been not playing ball at all, which is just fine. At the end of the day, it's nice to have lots and lots of Ellies around. It's been so wonderful watching them and spending time with them, and whenever you can get them like this out in the open close to a waterhole, it's generally really, really nice. You get beautiful views of them, and this particular herd this morning is really relaxed. It's almost like they're in a little bit of a daze, bar these two who are being a bit naughty, but the rest of them are fairly relaxed. We're just having a slow drink. There wasn't much rush to what they were doing, and it was all just kind of very peaceful and calm here for a second. I'm not sure if it's going to change now that the adults have finished drinking, they might start marching the little ones away. Now that trunk in the mouth is a pretty common thing to see in ellies. They do it a lot, particularly if there's been a bit of a separation in the herd, or if they're trying to sort of figure out who's who. And you find a situation where they'll kind of stick their trunks into each other's mouths. And it's almost like a handshake for humans. It's a greeting that takes place. And like I said, they're able to then breathe pretty much onto the organ of Jacobson, which sits just inside the roof of their mouth. And that will help them to be able to understand who is who, and the relationships that are within the herd will then be strengthened via that. So it's an important part of elephant society, is the little trunk in mouth greeting. You guys are very, very lazy this morning. It's nice to see, actually. Just a gentle flap of ears and the odd trunk moving, but otherwise no one's really in a hurry to go anywhere. It's pretty here, though, I must be honest. This little northern side of the dam is very, very pretty. But are elephants unique in the fact that they have teeth between their front legs rather than further back like the cats do? So yes, they are. No one else really has teeth that come that far forward, bar obviously monkeys, which are pretty closely related to us, so they have a very similar anatomical structure that what we do. But these guys are the only kind of ones that spend time on four legs that we see here in this part of the world, that the teeth are so far forward. Most animals, it's towards the back end, and so the reason for it, I suspect, is just because of the size of these guys, and their genitals, etc., take up a bit of space down the back end. And so it's much easier to have the teats in the front end, which will allow ample space for the little ones to drink, and they won't be in a sensitive area where potentially they could get could hurt or damage the cow if they were trying to drink. Sometimes babies can be a bit rough, which is never very pleasant for the cows that are involved in that. There's some magnificent females in this herd, particularly the one on the far left. She's absolutely beautiful. She's a big girl. You can see now that she's starting to walk. I suspect what we'll find is that the rest of the herd will just slowly start to follow her lead. I would imagine she's the matriarch for this particular grouping. She is the largest of them in this sort of immediate family group. So generally these big older females are the ones that dictate what goes on and will lead the others around. Isn't that beautiful to see her on the edge of this blue water with the green in the background? Very, very, very pretty. It almost doesn't look like Djuma in some ways. We're so used to it being so much drier than this that it looks like a different place when you look at it from this angle, because this water and the depth with the sort of trees in the background, it's just not a image that generally you think of at Djuma. Like I said, the pan for the last couple of years dam has not really gone far beyond where the first elephants are starting to go now. So that bush on the left hand side was about as far as it came up. So it's a very different kind of view from here nowadays, that it's flooded all the way up this side. Hey guys, where are you off to? Is it feeding time again now? Aren't these little babies so cute? Especially the littlest one. Eddie Spaghetti, anything's possible out here. That's the most wonderful part about being out in nature, is that at any point in time you could potentially see something like that. But generally, the reason why elephant births are so uncommon for people to see is that most of them happen at night for some reason. So most elephants will give birth during the sort of dark periods of the night. There's very few that give birth during the day. And normally they're quite sort of secretive of it. They know that their baby's going to be quite vulnerable. Lots of grumbling. Quite vulnerable when they first have it, and so often will find thicker areas and don't really want people around. But it does happen. There has been a few recorded events that have been recorded and on film and things like that, and so it can happen, and most certainly something that we could potentially see. It would be just a very, very rare thing to actually get it on film and to get it in daylight. You know, we don't spend enough time out at night these days to potentially see that, but it's very possible. Like I say, anything can happen. All right, so we're going to keep bumbling along. I think these guys are going to leave us and go into the thickets behind us, which I'm not going to go crashing around in with them. And so while we think about where we're going to go next, let's send you back across to David, who's got a bird of prey.
And what a beautiful bird of prey it is. The majestic Bateleur eagle. Sitting in my favorite tree, an old dead leadwood. Scoping and scanning. Maybe ironic that the Bateleur is right above where the lion tracks crossed. Bateleur are excellent at locating carcasses, often the first birds of prey to locate a carcass. I don't think there's a carcass here, but they do often keep an eye on lion. And on the lion note, I do have sad news. They have crossed out Djuma. No longer able to follow them. Just here on the road. Let me get out and show you. You can see their tracks. All over here. Let me get on the other side of the sun. See all these tracks. There's a big female and the cubs. All around here. See, they mulled around on the road a little bit here. You can actually see where they lay down. You can see their tails on the soft sand here and the imprint of their body. Not so long ago, just a few hours ago, I reckon. Lion were lying here, just up ahead there. In the road I can see another spot where a lion lay down. A nice vantage point for them. They can see as the road dips down. Nice open area. So unfortunately though, we're not going to be able to catch up with them unless they head back into the property, which is not impossible. We'll carry on up just to check. But we gave it a good go. We had a lovely morning of tracking lion. Not completely unsuccessful. We did manage to follow them right across Djuma. But here it ends. Well, let's carry on up the road, see if maybe there's a chance of something else, but otherwise let's send you back over to Ngala, see what they're up to.
So we managed to catch up to where these lions are laying down, and just have a look at this. See this one lying with its paw like actually onto Mom's leg there, and it does look like they might have made a kill during the evening. So if we just look, and if we can focus on that white one, the white young male that's just off to the right there, you'll notice there's a little bit of blood across the face, even on the elbow. Like, just see, he's pretty dirty. So it probably tells us, like last night, that's one of the reasons they haven't moved as far as we thought they might have moved. There's probably made a kill somewhere along the line. And then if you look at the way that they're laying down, so often after a big feast, you'll see them laying down with their on their backs with their feet up into the air. So look at that one, and then look at this one here off to the left. And just slightly left of that as well, and if you go left from this female and a bit up, you might find there's another youngster lying with its foot up in the air. Looks like that young white male was just stretching himself a bit. Doesn't look like he's going to get up soon, but have a look at the size of this female. You'll see her belly's pretty full, and also quite, you have to really carefully look around the face, but you'll see it does look like it is slightly dirty in color, so probably also saying that I think everyone here, the whole pride, had a good meal. Now the other day when myself and Yapi were tracking these lions, we tracked them for quite a few hours, and it was so interesting to see that during the evening, so they covered an area as far as close to probably 6-7 kilometers that night, and during that time, when we found them, it didn't look like they ate anything, but as we were walking through the area, we could see two areas where they actually caught impala. And with the pride being so big, if all of them are full, it probably tells us it had to be something big, maybe possibly a wildebeest, maybe even a zebra. I think if it was a big buffalo, they would still be around the carcass, so this tells me something like a wildebeest, so that they could probably clean off and then move on from there. And then decided to come lay down in this open area. Francie H5, I would say the favorite, like it all depends on what's there. Like, I mean, sometimes if they move around a waterhole, they'll go for waterbuck possibly. If they move to open areas, they would go for zebra and wildebeest. And if they find a herd of buffalo that move through the area, they'll go for buffalo. So pretty much anything that they can possibly get, they'll try. Herd of impala, wildebeest, maybe warthogs, anything that they can possibly get. But I would say probably some of the animals that I have seen them more on regularly than any other would probably be wildebeest. But as I said, it all depends on the area that they're moving in and what's the most abundant prey species in that area. They are fast asleep. Oh, have a look at this. And if we focus on these two lying down, like next to that bush, it looked like that bigger female one turned around. Now I wonder, I haven't seen the face of this bigger one, but I wonder if that's not her youngster that's just laying behind her. Now often with lions after a meal, of course there's no table manners, so every lion for themselves, and they'll fight quite viciously for any scrap of food. But often when they have finished off a animal and they move on, they then re-establish that social bond and often lie down quite close to each other again. They are really, really comfortable. Oh, but I can't really see that well, the one's face. You don't mind maybe just moving that grass for us so we can have a better glimpse on the screen? No, I'm kidding. You don't have to. Oh, look at this one on the right. She's just stood up. Imagine she might just, with her getting up and moving, it might be because of the sun coming out. Just immediately all of them picked up their heads. Have a look at that one right there. Owen, that young male. Look at how dirty he is. Wow. I think it must have been something because he's covered. No, yeah, he'll come out now. So if you just stay there, you'll see he'll move into the screen now. He's covered with, or stained with blood. You'll see him now. He's coming through. Just wait for it. Here he goes. Pablo, this is the Birmingham Pride. So you'll see that's the young male, the white male. And then just behind him is the white female. There she is. I think, yeah, it is it's just hard to see because the way that we angled right now is we're actually looking a little bit into the sun. But if we give it some time, they're just basically moving into a bit of shade now. And it looks like all the others are now getting up to come and follow them. So if we spend some time, probably see the whole pride moving through. Teresa, I would say, like especially with them being on the road, they probably preferred just an area that was nice and open. And the area around us, it's a very rocky section, so there's quite a lot of rocks around. So I can just imagine it must be so uncomfortable for them. And so then that's why they probably decided to come and lie down here. Now, it's not dangerous because, I mean, even if we drive on the roads in order to try and track them, we won't drive fast at all. What could be another thing is possibly if there's elephants around and they do spot them, they might chase them. However, with lions, there's not much that they have to worry about. The only other danger to them, of course, would probably be something like a herd of elephants that would move through, probably just chase them. But you'll see they're not really too fussed about it. But then another thing could be another pride of lions. And knowing this pride, it's very unlikely because they would probably be the ones that could chase the other prides away. What I have noticed is there's another pride that often occurs within this area. And it's just a few females with a couple of youngsters. And often what happens is as soon as these lions move into the area, of course, the other pride would move away. So what I'll do is once this one gets up, we'll just spend some time with her and see when she gets up, we'll probably just turn around and move slightly back to see the rest of the pride. All they've done is just moved and they've gone and laid down in the trees behind us. And some great photography work there. What I'm going to do is we just move a little bit back so we can, or we just reposition the vehicle. So just bear with me. I'm going to do hard right down and see if we can just get another glimpse. Shame because someone was trying to follow them with the camera. I can just see his back nearly going out of place. Okay, let me just move like this. Okay, and tell me when you have a little gap of that one there. I think the young male might be a possible option because I think the other ones are just lying down in the grass. You can't really see them that well. Back a little bit, so I'm just going to go slightly back. Tell me when to stop. Okay. So we're just going back. You'll see them all in the shade right here. This. Is that the gap? Okay. Here we go. All of them huddled together. And what's so funny about this whole scene is that we know, based on lion behavior, is they are pretty lazy animals. They'll sleep the whole day. So with it warming up, now the mist is slowly starting to disappear. And so because of that, I think they're going to be in the shade here for probably the next 9-10 hours, and only later on this afternoon when it starts cooling down, that's when they'll probably start moving again. But for now, full bellies. Some of them are a little bit fuller than the others. They'll just lie down here for the next little while, and then later on probably just get up, maybe go towards water, or they could have even come down from water. The water is not too far from where they are. Maddie, age 13, that's a very good question. I would say the structure of this particular pride, or any lion pride in general, is that the pride would be led by the most experienced females. So if there's a male around, of course, he'll be more dominant. But often, especially with this pride, the males aren't really with the pride a lot. They'll be around patrolling their territory, scent marking, make sure no other males come around. So the females are the ones that actually would lead this pride in general. And so with any pride structure, you have the older females. So these are the ones with the most experience, that have been the longest around. They will be the ones that lead the pride, look out for any hunting opportunities. And when the youngsters are small, they'll actually just leave the youngsters behind, because they often spoil the hunt. You know what I want to do? So before I continue the story, and you see just on the right now, I think that young male is actually coming closer. But I think there's another one. I'm just going to move slightly forward, because we might just see, oh, there we go, he's coming in. And so with the older females, they'll be the ones leading, and then the youngsters would often be left behind, unless they get to the age of around about 3 years, 3.5 years. They'll start joining the hunts. They can start from 1.5 years onwards. That doesn't look too comfortable. He's actually laying with his head on top of a bush there. He's trying to make himself comfortable. But then, with the whole pride structures, normally, of course, the older females, they'll lead it. The younger ones, they will stay behind until they're old enough to join. And, of course, the males, once they get to 1.5 years to 2 years, that's when they normally get pushed out of the pride and by the dominant males of that particular area or pride. And then once they're pushed off, they often become nomadic. So they basically go, and all they try and do is survive. They'll steal kills from cheetah, from wild dog, from leopards, anything they can possibly do in order to stay alive until they get to around about 4.5, 5 years. And then once they reach that stage, they become more and more dominant. And it's only from around about 6.5 years when they'll start taking over prides, or possibly start their own pride at that time. But for a young male lion, when he's pushed out of the pride, it's a pretty hard life. They are technically the kings of the jungle whenever they take over pride, but normally the period before that and the period after that is a really hard time in a young male's life. Just shows you how social they are. Look at all of these that are now coming in, how they're laying almost on top of each other. Mithra, age 14, that is a very good question. I'm not too sure on where the name or for the pride comes in. And the thing is, like, I would love to interpret it and try and make up my own little story, but I'm just not too sure. I don't know if any of the viewers would be able to help out with it, or else, like, I mean, it's one of the questions that I'll definitely go and search. I think I probably read it a few years ago, but unfortunately I can't remember exactly. So I'd rather go find out, and then maybe this afternoon, if any of our viewers know, I'd love to hear, but if not, I'll go and read up about it, and I'll let everyone know this afternoon on our next drive. Sunisa, good question. So with this pride, there's a concession that borders Ngala, referred to as Birmingham. So it's a concession that's on our southwestern corner of Ngala. And this pride actually came from there, and hence the name, the Birmingham Pride. So basically with the prides, if we refer to them by a specific name, it's mainly because of where they come from or where they were born. And this whole pride originally comes out of that area, Birmingham, and that's why they were called the Birmingham Pride. Or we refer to them as the Birmingham Pride. The only thing you can see with this pride at the moment is just the flick of the tail and the flick of the ear. Now, if you were driving and you are looking now for lines, those are the main characteristics. And I know I've emphasized so many times with guests. We're driving like, okay, look out for the flick of the tail, look out for the flick of the ear, look in the shade of the trees. And then you don't really think about it until you see it like this and you realize, oh, but that's one of the things we're looking out for is basically just any movement. Because if you had to try and spot a lion in this type of environment, it's so hard because their colors blend in so well, especially in this time of the year when the color the grass turns into this like light brown, whitish color. But I think for now, these lions aren't going to be heading anywhere pretty soon. There's a waterhole not too far away from here. I think let's go there, see if there's maybe some elephants that come down, maybe buffaloes to drink, and this afternoon we can come back and have a look. We'll come and have a look and see if they're still around. But for now, while we are going to go to a waterhole, let's head across to David, who is at a waterhole looking at hippo.
We've made it down to Cheetah Dam. It's very close to where we had to say goodbye to those lion tracks. They crossed into, looks like Little Gallery. But it was a nice morning following them, and we've just come down to have these sea cows. Remember, I love Afrikaans and I love the translations. And in Afrikaans, a hippo is a sequoia, and the direct translation to that is a sea cow. And we have two beautiful sea cows here. Makes complete sense. They eat grass like cows, and they like water. And back when hippos were named, there used to be lots of hippos on our coastline. You still get hippo on the coastline in places like St. Lucia. Not so common anymore. But when you look at the history, it makes complete sense to call it a sea cow. What else do we have here? If we look across the open plain, you see a waterbuck lying down. It looks like an Inyala bull, both waterbuck and Inyala bull there. Always nice to see Inyala. Inyala is the one on the back left there. Beautiful colorations. What's on its horn? Some mud. See the mud on its horns? It's been digging in the mud. Different theories as to why they do that. But one of them is that it protects from the borer moth, which is an insect that attacks the keratin in the horn. You see it on old skulls and horns lying in the bush. They get very quickly decomposed by these borer moths. And they do actually land on the even living animals and try and start the breakdown process of the keratin in those horns, but obviously the animal's living. So we believe that all the scratching and sticking their horns in the mud is to try and dissuade that insect. Jason, you're 8 years old. You've asked, do crocodile and hippo have overlapping territories? And they do. They share their little territories. I think hippo are more territorial. They have the whole dam. Crocodile also make use of different water, but they can move, as can hippo move. But when you're talking about overlapping territories, we're normally referring to animals that are in competition to each other. And remember, hippo and crocodile are not in competition. They eat different things. Animals are only in competition when they share the same food. As you know, crocodile eat meat, they eat fish and mammals. And hippo eat grass. Remember, they're like a sea cow. So they're not competing for food, so they're not really competing for territory. They just both happen to live in the water, so they share the same space. So in a way it is overlapping, yes. Well, it sounds like Tristan's got a small and interesting creature. Let's send you over to him and see what it is.
We do indeed. Anyway, we had a very, very, very cool version of a stick insect, which was basically it mimicked grass essentially, and it looked just like grass, which was very, very cool. And nature really is never short of amazing things. When you see an insect that literally looks like grass, and even its legs and the way that they come off and the way that they use them kind of flail in the wind like a grassy section, it's pretty incredible to kind of see. Now apparently we have a replay. How exciting we can pull back the fact that we actually have a stick insect, so you guys can have a little look at that while I kind of carry on talking. Oh, 2 seconds. Okay, I'll give you 2 seconds, Lundeka, no problem. Hopefully so yeah, it was at least it was a very cool looking little insect. I was really hoping that it was going to stay there so we could talk about it. That kind of... So you back again? You guys left and now you're back. What are you guys doing? There's a squirrel too, BK, look. But yeah, nature never ceases to amaze me. To have an insect that is so perfectly designed to be able to mimic grass is absolutely incredible. And it kind of unfortunately landed on our bonnets, and then it sat there for a while, and all of a sudden then jumped off and decided that it wanted to be free, which is fine. Here's this little squirrel that is kind of sitting and taking it easy. So while we kind of sit with our squirrel, you guys can take a look at our little stick insect that we saw. It's all grassy and amazing. It's very, very cool. Little creatures, those things. Absolutely amazing. Isn't it cool to see that camouflage? How things find insects like that? Because they do. I mean, I've seen ground hornbills with them in their mouth before. I've seen various birds catch them. It must be as they kind of cross roads, or they must sort of move and do something different, because it really does look just like a blade of grass, that particular little one. Really cool. So glad that we could at least show you what it looked like. As you can see, our squirrel is very busy at the moment. It's having a fine old time sitting on top of the small termite mound, a little bit of scratching, a little bit of eating, just living its best life. enjoying the sun. And I suppose if you're a squirrel, the nights must be fairly cold out here, so a little bit of sunshine on a termite mound must be very, very pleasant. But I went back briefly, it's getting hot now, I went back briefly just now to go and see if I could find any sign of that male leopard, and his tracks just kind of go into the drainage, and so there's really not much I can do for now. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to come out after drive and see if I can track it down during the course of the day, and try to get back after drive, and see, maybe we're lucky if we just go out during the day, maybe we can pick him up somewhere sleeping and at least try and find a sighting somehow. So that will be the plan. In the meantime, though, I'm going to send you back across to David at Cheetah. I'm going to try and see if I can get a view of these ellies, and while I'll do that, like I say, back across to David, see what he's up to.
We're still down at Cheetah Dam, just having a little bumble along the side. Seeing what else we can find. Some beautiful big sea cows here on the right. Let's just stop. Have a little look at them. Ooh, now they're shy. We're gonna have to wait for them to come back up. They're just over here. Some beautiful bird life down here as always. Three-banded plovers, Egyptian geese. Lots of starlings, blacksmith lapwing, all sorts of birds down here. There they are. Ooh, well spotted, Alex. Fish eagles right at the top of that tree. We didn't even see them on the way in. Very, very cool. We'll actually try and get a bit closer just now. Nice to see them together. Must be the male and the female pair. Remember, they're monogamous birds, meaning that they mate together, stay together, one partner. I wonder if they've got a nest around. It is the time of year when they lay their eggs. Majority of the eggs in South Africa around this time of year, May, June. And I'm told that they do have a nest at Cheetah. I just don't know where it is. Maybe there where they're sitting. Borden Louvre. I don't know if I got your name right there. You've asked, are hippo susceptible to predators? And pretty much the only thing that'll eat a hippo is lion. Crocodile can give it a go for a young hippo, but it'll be at their peril because mom will always be close by. When hippo get out on the dry land and feed for the evening, they can become susceptible to lion, although it would take a large pride lion to bring down an adult hippo. They've got ferocious teeth. They are large and strong. Look at that youngster at the back there, so cute. Generally the hippo that fall prey to lion are older bulls that have been cast out of their water holes. When it gets into the dry season and there's droughts in Africa, as we've had for the last few years in this region, water sources dry up and competition for these water sources becomes increasingly fierce. Hippo bulls, the male hippo, will have serious fights to own a little stretch of water real estate with females. Sometimes those fights can even be fatal, but if not fatal, then the outcast bull will roam around, and there's not that many water sources out here, so you'll generally try another one and often find that it's already occupied by another bull. And their skin gets all cracked and sore from the sun, and they start losing condition and getting weak. And just generally those hippo that we find are prey to a pride of lion. It's been a lovely morning at Cheetah Dam. We're going to slowly start bumbling on back. So let's send you back over to Tristan with the elephant.
Well, our Ellies, but our Ellies don't want to be our friends. They want to just walk away from us today. I don't know why they are being a little bit shy. As soon as we went down to where they were drinking, they just turned and left and off they go. I wonder if it's maybe just because they've separated slightly from the rest of the herd, and so for them it's better just to get a move on and go and catch up and basically rejoin with everybody else, is what I think they're up to. We'll try and see if we go forward a little bit, if they'll give us another view, but it looks like they're heading into quite thick bush, which is not ideal at all. It's not been an easy morning in many respects. Had so much potential, but once again, things haven't quite gone our way, that's for sure. Just have to see how it goes this afternoon. There's still at least tracks to work with, and there's Ellies around, and hopefully there'll be some buffalo. It'd just be nice if, just really nice if Columba or Tundi would make an appearance. They've been super kind of scarce of late, and I honestly think this is probably the worst run of leopard sightings I've ever had in my time in the Sabi Sands, which is a weird thing. I don't think I've ever gone this many game drives without seeing a leopard in the Sabi Sands, which is a weird concept, but just happens sometimes, I suppose. I've had a very, very bad lion droughts in the Sabi Sands before. I remember once when I started at Cheetah, it was my first cycle that I did there. We went 44 days without seeing a lion, so 88 game drives without seeing a lion, which was tough. Not easy to explain to guests that we have come on safari why they're not seeing a lion, especially given that we were hearing them almost every night. But at that point, the Majinga lands, the lions would call from Mahala Mahala every day. The Sticks Pride in the Majinga lands. It was a tough time, everybody. It was not easy during that period. So it's not the first time we've gone through droughts of specific animals, but leopards, like I say, I don't think I've ever gone more than 4 days without a leopard, normally in the Sabi Sands. At one point, I'd maintained a really good record as a guide. I mean, I did a fair amount of time as a guide in the Sabi Sands, and I think I had managed to do pretty much, I think it was like 7 years or 8 years of guiding, and managed to get every single guest a leopard in those 8 years that I had, even those that stayed for one night. And then it was broken one day with a one-nighter that came in, and we didn't get a leopard in the 2 game drives that they were with us. So we were lucky for the most part, but gives you an idea of just how ridiculously good the leopard game viewing, or the leopard viewing is within the Sabi Sands generally. It really is an astounding place to see leopards. And while it's been tricky now, there's a number of reasons for that. It's not that there isn't leopards around. There are leopards around, and we're seeing their footprints. So that gives you a very strong indication that they are still moving through this area. But I think, you know, with the lack of vehicles, it's pretty much just Dave and myself that are working Djuma for long periods of time. That, coupled with the fact that the bush is thick, there's a lot of water. We're in a changeover of our leopard dynamic in the form of a few new males in the area and some of our older, more regular leopards distributing. It's just a recipe for a quiet time, but that's all good. I spoke to James last night. I said to him, James, was it necessary to take all the cats with you when you left Djuma? And he said to me that he's not sure what I was talking about, because in his time here it wasn't exactly a cat feast for him either. So typical James, but that's the way it goes. Hopefully we'll recover from it and we'll get a bumper week coming up. That's what I think. Anyway, it sounds like Dave is still enjoying Cheetah Dam. Seems like he's doing a spot of birding, so let's send you back across to him.
A little bit closer to this fish eagle. What a beautiful shot Alex has managed to set up here. Like a male-female pair. I'd still like to know where the nest is, possibly in that tree or somewhere else around here. Such regal looking birds. Can we tell which is the male and the female? Any guesses? Remember, the female's a little bit larger than the male, and it's got a broader white breast patch. Plumage on the front, that white plumage is a bit broader. JC, you reckon these are awesome birds? I agree. What do you think? Which one is male, which one is female? Look at that eye. Incredible eyesight. Ever watchful. Very robust birds. Sam, you said you reckon the one on the right is a female. I agree. She does look a little bit bigger. And that breast patch of white does look a little bit broader. Strong, heavy-set eagles. Very powerful talons. They can lift fish of up to 2 kilograms out of the water, which is nearly their own body weight. They weigh up to about 2.5 kilograms. About 5 to 6 pounds. There is nothing as iconic in Africa as the fish eagle's call. Such a distinctive call found along our waterways and bodies of water in Africa. Many a traveller has enjoyed it, watching an African sunset, having a cold gin and tonic whilst listening to a fish eagle call. Well, it's been an absolutely lovely morning. We love spending it with you, getting to show you all of this beauty. Remember to please support us if you can. Follow that link on the bottom of the page. And we really appreciate it. It allows us to keep doing what we do, which is bringing you all the magnificence of the bush good for the soul being out here, listening to the birds, listening to the hippo. Inhaling the fresh air and hearing the sounds of the birds. Well, from Alexei and the two fish eagles, that's a cheers from this morning.